is the stuff that nightmares are made of. Imagine being led down a dark corridor by disembodied footsteps, feeling an icy hand suddenly grip your shoulder, turning around to see no one there, only to hear a raspy voice whisper in your ear, "Get out while you can." Well, if you've never visited Alcatraz Island, it might be a good idea to start packing your bags. This place is one of the most haunted places in America. Alcatraz was once home to some of the most ruthless killers and dangerous criminals in the country, and now their spirits are said to roam freely throughout the island, especially at night when the fog rolls in. It was considered inescapable, housing the likes of Al Capone and George Kelly Barnes, aka Machine Gun Kelly. But the prison was more than just bare cell walls and iron bars. Many of the prisoners lost their minds while locked up there. Author and former prison guard Brian Callen wrote in his book, Alcatraz, The Untold Story, that the island itself seemed to feed off the misery of those held captive within it. The cells were damp and cold, and a thick layer of grime covered everything. Rotten waste filled the toilets, and the stench of stale urine soaked into the floors, furniture, and clothing. Prisoners suffered from severe depression, hallucinations, and even spontaneous cases of insanity. So you can imagine how some of them might have kicked the bucket while staying there. But what happens after death? Well, according to those who have spent the night on Alcatraz, the ghosts of the former inmates will make regular appearances, shaking the very foundations of the building with their moans and screams. There are also strange occurrences throughout the day too. Many visitors and staff alike report feeling a sudden drop in temperature as they walk through the cell block. And when the wind whips through the abandoned prison, it sounds like disembodied voices whispering and arguing with each other. One of the most spine-tingling accounts comes from former inmate Norman Carlson, who wrote about his experience in the prison E cell block D in an article called The Ghosts of Alcatraz. He recalled hearing the sound of footsteps pacing back and forth in the cell next door. He described it as someone walking back and forth on the steel grating of the cell floor. Carlson opened the cell door to investigate and saw nothing. Another time he was awoken in the middle of the night by the sound of a cell door slamming shut. He looked over to see cell B tier had slammed shut, even though he knew all the inmates were accounted for and no one was allowed outside their cells after curfew. In another instance, 3 prison employees were working late in cell block D when they heard the distinct sound of someone walking above them. They looked up to see the catwalk above them swaying back and forth. As they watched in suspense, the shape of a man appeared on the catwalk, then vanished. Then they heard the sound of heavy footsteps coming closer and closer until they were right outside the room they were in. But when they opened the door to investigate, no one was there. Perhaps the most terrifying encounter was experienced by one visitor who was wandering around the cell blocks alone when they felt a cold spot and turned to see the shadow of a man standing behind them. The ghostly figure was tall and thin with a head that looked like a triangle. The visitor tried to make conversation with the apparition, but the ghost only stared at him before slowly reaching out a hand and touching his shoulder. The visitor ripped his arm away as if burned and ran as fast as he could to the exit, where he turned around to see the ghost of Alcatraz Island standing in the middle of the cell block, arms outstretched, beckoning for him to come back. It's safe to say Alcatraz Island is one of the most haunted places in America. If these stories are true, Then it seems like the spirits of the former inmates and guards are determined to make their presence known. But what do you think? Let me know in the comments below. And as always, thanks for watching.